Greetings, gentle listeners. If you enjoy this podcast, you may also like Brose, a mirthy talk show starring four bros who sip wine and consider questions submitted by you, the audience, about current events, pop culture, and which Muppet you should get tattooed on your back. Subscribe to Brose wherever you get your podcasts. That's Brose. Brose, the podcast for those who drink rosé.
What does
Walter Mosely?
have to do with Petscop?
Is Mitt Romney a communist? The answer may surprise you.
Does Kid Rock plus a colostomy bag equal a great time?
Will Brexit stop the flow of the Cadbury cream egg? We can hope.
Does Boomer need a bib while driving? Yes, he does. The answers to these questions, plus sports, emotional weather, and stayed up. That's tonight
On Person in Person.
Good evening wherever you are, whoever you are, and welcome to Person in Person. I'm Gene Person.
And I'm Greg Person.
No relation. Person in Person is a news show for people who don't like news shows by people who do not like news shows. And I just got my second dose of the Pfizer COVID vaccine, so my arm is killing me, but my Wi-Fi reception is great.
Oh yeah, you got that 5G all up in you now.
Yeah, it's super good. Super good.
That's excellent. You're like a hybrid of man and machine.
Yeah. Everyone's turning into a cyborg up in here. All right, let's get into tonight's story beats.
A recent British survey showed that 1/3 of respondents only wash their sheets once a year, and 20% of respondents didn't wash their underwear after each use. Stereotypes about British sexual repression make a lot more sense now.
Indeed. U.S. Census data shows the nation's population has grown at its slowest rate since the Great Depression. It shows an exodus from populous strongholds like California, New York, and Midwestern cities, the Pacific Northwest, and the South. But does it really show that? Some argue that it shows a campaign to make immigrants, even those who immigrated through the proper but arduous processes we have in place, afraid of answering for fear of deportation, was super effective, and that it is in fact a censored census. A censored census being sold by she who sells seashells by the seashore. Some say so, some say nay, some say censored census while drinking Chardonnay.
Damn. I'm impressed you got through all that.
On the first take! Woo!
I know. That's killer. Former Senator Harry Reid claims that Lockheed Martin has fragments of crashed UFOs. So far, they've only managed to reverse engineer the crashing part, which is how we got Black Hawk helicopters and the F-35.
That's good. The office and apartment of Rudy Giuliani were raided last week by the FBI in investigating improprieties in Giuliani's attempts to tie the Biden administration to Ukrainian officials. Giuliani, one of the breakout stars of the second Borat film, was not alarmed until he learned the raids were conducted by the actual FBI as opposed to FBI Total Landscaping.
That's very funny. I like that one. After 5 years, zookeepers in the Japanese city of Sapporo have discovered that the reason their mating pair of toucans kept laying infertile eggs is because they're both female. Zookeepers became suspicious when the toucans bought a Subaru and adopted a rescue cat.
You know, if you got 3 toucans up in there, you'd have a 6-pack.
Oh, dip. That's really good, too. You're on fire tonight.
No, that's a Jungle Cruise joke. That is blatantly ripped off from the Jungle Cruise.
Oh, I have no idea what Jungle Cruise is, so...
It's a Disney attraction.
Ah, gotcha. Well, you could have fooled me.
Oregon State Representative Mike Neerman, who allowed far-right protesters access to the state capitol, has been charged with first-degree official misconduct and second-degree criminal trespass. Both crimes are misdemeanors, but the former charge could carry as much time as a year in prison, a $6,200 fine, and perhaps worst of all, a life sentence of having to be Mike Neerman.
Nobody deserves that. Nobody.
No. Wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, Mike Neerman. All right, enough about the news. It's time for main news. Our top story tonight, as usual, I'm just going to dive right in, if that's okay with you, Greg.
Yeah, go for it.
There are creepypastas that I love. Candle Cove and the Goatman story come to mind. There are creepypastas that give you just a little bit more, like Ben Drowned, The Princess, and Nest Godzilla. Those are all good examples where there are actual like art files and videos associated in some cases. But then there's Petscop, which transcends the definition of creepypasta and enters a uniquely creepy realm all its own. What starts with a video in the format of a YouTube Let's Play about a PlayStation game that shouldn't and didn't exist turned into a mysterious and confusing series that evoked all kinds of darknesses we like to pretend don't exist, but do. It's not for everyone, it's extremely unnerving, and even when it ends, you're left with far more questions than answers. But it is one of the coolest phenomena I've ever been a part of in the sense of watching it while it uploads. I waited eagerly for every new upload, and I can't describe the feeling when after months and months suddenly a new video would pop into the feed. Petscop had a huge online following, including detailed analyses. Nightmare Masterclass is my favorite, and even fan sites and dedicated forums. There is tons of Petscop fan art out there. As it turns out, it was an artistic endeavor created by Tony Domenico. And it was and is a brilliant vision of a completely new exercise in artistry, storytelling, and psychology.
Awesome. But what does it have to do with Walter Mosely? Now, Walter Mosely, for those of you who don't know, and I'm sure most of you don't, is an American novelist who's best known for hard-boiled detective stories, but also writes science fiction, erotica, comics, children's books, non-fiction books, and he has a good-sized audience and the respect of his peers. In fact, this past year, he was the first black man to win the National Book Award Medal for Distinguished Contribution to American Letters. But in fairness to the National Book Foundation, that award's only been around since 1936. So they just hadn't gotten around to it yet.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, he's not widely known as the greatest novelist alive, which is what he is. And this is not... It is my opinion, but you have to understand that on the subject of American literature, my opinions are facts.
Okay.
And he is a singular genius. His work is absolutely transformative. And it actually makes me kind of sad that here's this guy who mystery fans agree is pretty good. He's had a couple of movies made out of his books.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, he's not a superstar. And he should be. In a just world, he would be.
I am going to reserve judgment on this novelist because I actually have not read his work.
You're breaking my heart. It hurts.
Hey, I've never heard his name before you brought it up here.
That's
I know.
the thing that's insane to me.
And now now that you have evangelized him, I'm going to have to check it out.
Okay, so here's my suggestion to you then. Start with The Gift of Fire.
Okay.
It's very short, and it does give you... It's a very good sort of overview of the themes of his work.
Okay.
Kind of condensed in this one novella. So that's where I would start, and that is in fact where I started. Because I had never heard of him either, like all through college. I discovered him at the grocery store at Fred Meyer, which for you folks in other parts of the country is Kroger. I was waiting for a bus, and I had time to grab something to read on the bus, so I went into the store, and on the rack I saw this book, and I was like, this is short. So I grabbed it, I read it, I was absolutely blown away, and I read a bunch more, and I was like, who the fuck is this guy?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who he is, and he's incredible. He's unlike anybody who's even writing today. And, well, here's another wild story, if you'll indulge me. I know I'm going on about this subject. Do you remember, I won't say his name, but do you remember the older fellow who was very tall with the long white beard that we used to work with?
Santa Claus? Yeah, of course.
Yes, Santa Claus. Well, Santa Claus worked in pagination.
Mm-hmm.
And He's, as you know, very intelligent, very literate guy.
Mm-hmm.
And
one of the cooler, more interesting people I've ever worked with, honestly.
Oh, absolutely. And he and I both love conspiracy theories. So between that and books, we always had a lot to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
But one day I was saying to him, okay, I'm going to throw a name at you. You've probably never heard of him before, but they are the greatest novelist alive. Walter Mosely. And he stared at me like I had described his grandmother's ghost. Because he also was a tremendous fan of Walter Mosely and thought that he was the greatest novelist alive. But no one that he knew had ever heard of him either. So
okay. You have now introduced me to Walter Mosely. So this is one tie between that and Petscop because I introduced you to Petscop.
You did, and I loved it.
Petscop, while it is a phenomenon, I don't know that it's a particularly well-known phenomenon. I don't know, like, in your average home, if the people had watched Petscop, but it truly is a work of genius. So there's that too. What else do you think could tie these two things together?
Well, in a lot of Walter Mosely stories, as in a lot of sort of noir, hard-boiled flavored fiction, because even his sci-fi has a very noir edge to it.
Mm-hmm.
The thing in noir stories is that at the end of them, nothing was solved, nothing mattered.
Yeah.
It was just something that happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah, in all the best noir stories, that is certainly the case. That is a really, really sharp observation.
Yeah, and being as I'm a fan of the noir genre. Noir genre is a fucking hard phrase to say. As I'm a fan of the noir genre from way back, that's kind of what I like about it. That, you read this story and you're like, well, what's the point? Well, no point. That's life. Sometimes things just happen. And, and you can see some of that in a lot of contemporary fiction. And Petscop is one of those stories. It's the rare horror story that has that sort of noir nihilism to it.
It really actually does. There is, even in the scenes where the character is in a well-lit place, there's always that undercurrent of darkness, and it all, even when it's supernatural, it still feels very human. And,
I mean, whatever it's ultimately about, and I don't know. I've seen the whole thing, and
it's about Ace of Bases, The Sign. Let's be honest.
Of course, yeah.
They did do. I don't know if you were aware of this, but there was one upload that they did where the main character Petscop, the little toon guy, he's moving in really erratic ways, and if you sync it up to Ace of Bases, The Sign, it's like perfect.
No, I had no idea that was a thing. That's
completely
wild.
In sync, and I believe so it's Petscop 21. It was perfectly synced with The Sign, which was really, really funny to me in the midst of all this darkness, and maybe a needed, break in the tension also. But it was also really funny to see people running with that and being like, well, maybe The Sign refers to an onk. Maybe
But see, the thing about it is most horror fiction is very moralistic,
Yeah.
And a great horror story, I think, is one. Well, and there are great moralistic horror stories. Moralism is not necessarily, disqualifying you from being a great story. But there are a lot of great horror stories where it's just, you watch them and you're like, well, wasn't really a point to that. It's just a thing that happened.
Yeah, there's some really incredible storytelling that is done when an author or a creator is willing to dig into ambiguity. It can really open things up to a whole new dimension. No, but when you're willing to dig into the shades of gray in between the black and white, that's where some really interesting story stuff can happen. I've tried writing into shades of gray, and sometimes it's a little challenging for me because I have a very black and white outlook on life.
But you got to be careful that you don't have too many shades of gray. I mean, if you had, say, 20 or 30 shades of gray, that's probably fine.
You get up to 50 and then it's a whole other genre, really.
Yeah, no, I'm not. That's too many shades of gray for me. I'm uncomfortable with that. I'm uncomfortable with, say, for example, my mom reading something like that. So...
out loud.
Yeah.
To me before I go to bed at night.
Yeah, on the phone, she calls me, reads me select passages. What are we talking about? What is this?
I don't know.
Okay.
It is completely off the rails, but it's hilarious.
I'm having fun anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if Walter Mosely was going to do a multimedia internet YouTube thing, it might look something like that. I could see that. He would take you into this, and this is another theme in his work, of this sort of slow descent into a world where nothing makes sense. And then you come back out again and you're like, well, I don't feel like I've grown from this experience, but I won't forget it. And, that's a staple of his noir and his science fiction. And I think that's a big part of Petscop, because it starts off being a thing that you understand. And then little by little, you're drawn into this world that
interesting
never resolves itself into something that you understand.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. All right. Well, I think that is probably the strongest tie between two ideas or stories that we have brought to this show yet. So let's pat ourselves on the back for that and get into breaking news.
Let's do it. So you might have seen this in the news. At the recent Utah Republican convention, Mitt Romney went on stage to bash the Biden administration and getting damn near booed off stage. There were over 2,000 heckling, howling chuds calling him a traitor and, funniest to me, a communist, proving a really solid grasp of economics and basic reality. Mitt Romney, the capitalist, is a communist because they don't like him, because the word communist just means someone you don't like.
Yeah.
Now, Mittens, to his credit, he did not slink away or attempt to pander to these animals. But kind of foolishly, he did try to get them to act like adults. He said, "Aren't you embarrassed?" And Mitt, I know you're listening. You're a fan of the show. I've gotten your Snapchats. Mitt, these people were never embarrassed. They weren't embarrassed before, and they aren't embarrassed now. Their kids are embarrassed by them. Their countrymen are embarrassed by them. And the people at the top of the Republican Party, the slick private equity vultures who told the rabble that somehow they'd get rich if you got richer, you guys are embarrassed by them. But these people are finally out and proud. They are plowing through your precious norms of political discourse and plowing through society itself like an F-250 through a crowd of protesters.
Oh,
but I mean, I didn't do it. I don't condone it. But
no,
I know.
It was just a really apt. Never mind. It's fine.
No, I'm with you. And the thing is, the GOP created these monsters. Their faux populism, their pickup truck bullshit, their Sarah Palin. Sarah Palin is really the prototype for these people. And they're the ones that created these little beasties. And now they want them to settle down again so that they can pretend that the Republican Party is something more than the muck at the bottom of America's spiritual drain.
It's not going to happen.
No, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
These people, I mean, the lunatics are not running the asylum. The lunatics are at Kid Rock's Honky Tonk Rock and Roll Steakhouse. And in fact, why don't you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so my breaking story, human weasel hybrid Kid Rock has a club in Nashville called Kid Rock's Honky Tonk Rock and Roll Steakhouse. And apparently there are a handful of people who are not at all embarrassed to go there. But this week, a rabid partygoer gave the establishment a bit more than they could handle, and they had to call the cops. Because this dude, overtaken by the spirit of Confederate douchebaggery, decided he needed to break out the old colostomy bag and start waving it around like a helicopter. Woo! Woo!
God, that's good.
It's a bag
I
full
fucking
of
love
shit, and
this.
guess what? It wound up getting all over the place. This dude rained shit on countless people, but it was all in the name of fun. Police were dispatched, and the guy was eventually arrested, but not before he got a couple of the officers. After the arrest, at least one officer had to take a 30-40 minute break to go home and change clothes. The perpetrator will be charged with assault and battery and is in a shitload of trouble. I'll note that this guy was doing this during a global pandemic, so there will probably be some really, really serious charges.
Well, I mean, I'd say throw the book at him, but he'd probably just throw the colostomy
Right
back at you, and you get the worst of that exchange.
It's not a fair trade.
So there's so much to talk about in this story, but the one thing that I want to say is, imagine if you're doing the ritual of trying to figure out with your wife where you want to go eat, and you say to her, "How about Kid Rock's Honky Tonk Rock and Roll Steakhouse?" Like, is that a no-fault divorce, or is that divorce for irreconcilable differences or mental cruelty? I'm not even asking what would happen. I'm saying, what kind of divorce would you get?
But there's no, the point is there's no way to come back from that.
No. If all she has to do is say in court that you said, let's go to Kid Rock's Honky Tonk Rock and Roll Steakhouse, and she gets the house, she gets the kid, she gets
mental
everything.
image is so hilarious to me.
You're gonna be so broke that Kid Rock's Honky Tonk Rock and Roll Steakhouse. I can't stop saying it. Fuck, I love it.
Funny. It's so inane.
You're gonna be so dead broke that Kid Rock's Honky Tonk Rock and Roll Steakhouse. Never mind. I was gonna make another joke, but I can't get through it.
Oh, this is the best. Folks, it's sports. If there ever was a sport that it was appropriately named, it's underwater cycling, in which people do a bicycle race underwater. Sometimes it's freshwater or pool water, sometimes salt water, but always underwater. Racers ride on special dense bikes that help weigh them down and wear scuba gear so they don't die. Different races have different rules. In North Carolina's race, perhaps the most famous, participants are allowed to do just about anything they want, short of riding a motorized bike or the cardinal sin of underwater bicycling, putting their feet on the ground to get past the finish line. Some races are more focused on speed and some on endurance, still others on obstacles. It's a pretty neat sport, honestly, and it requires a great deal of strength and endurance. Drowning is obviously the biggest danger, but sea life can complicate things as well. Sharks, jellyfish, and of course, mermaids. Speaking of mermaids, I'm told the sport was so popular that when Samuel E. Wright sings the line, "Darling, it's better down where it's wetter," in the song Under the Sea from The Little Mermaid, he's referring specifically to the act of cycling. Maybe it's wrong.
Can't be right.
Maybe. I mean, I got it from the internet, so it's probably true.
Legally, they can't put anything on the internet if it's false. I learned that on the internet.
All right, let's move on to the emotional weather.
Let's do.
This week we've decided to honor filmmaker Christopher Guest by doing the emotional weather, Waiting for Guffman, Best in Show, and A Mighty Wind.
Okay, do you want to start this one off?
Sure. My Waiting for Guffman story, there's something about musical theater that makes it ripe for interesting takes on existing IPs. Some are surprised to hear of the many films that seem like unlikely candidates for musical adaptations, but I'm going to rattle off a few of them here. Evil Dead, Heathers, The Witches of Eastwick, Carrie, Rocky, American Psycho, Ghost, King Kong, A Clockwork Orange, and Silence of the Lambs. It's a unique subgenre of musical theater, and it's all very tongue-in-cheek, but all these shows existed, and some of them were very successful. Taking things to an even more interesting level, in 2014, an improv troupe out of Chicago adapted Waiting for Guffman into a live musical theater production. Waiting for Guffman is a film about a live musical theater production. The tribute show called Red, White, and Blaine after the musical in the film was interesting enough that it was featured in the New York Times, a feat Corky St. Clair would have been so proud to accomplish.
Have you by chance seen the stage adaptation of Aliens that a bunch of high school students in New Jersey did?
I haven't, but now I have to.
Well, it's on YouTube. It's incredible. And not only is it incredible, it's so good that when their public demanded an encore performance, Sigourney Weaver showed up.
Whoa, really?
Yes. You can watch the whole show on YouTube. It is so good.
That's incredible. Okay, yeah, I'll have to check it out.
Well, for my Waiting for Guffman story, it's a little bit of a downer. The Sacramento Theater Company said they wanted to do a festival of plays to promote diversity and inclusion last year, and then they brought on a bunch of plays by white playwrights, had white actors playing the non-white roles, and they cast cis actors in non-binary roles. And
of course,
the whole direction of it was so tone deaf that the actors just didn't feel comfortable with it. They quit in protest en masse, and they had to scrap the whole thing. So
good. Yeah,
I mean, good on the actors for making sure that they weren't a part of something that wasn't what it should be. This, I mean, not to get political, because I literally do that with every breath that I take, and I'm sure that some people are tired of it. But this is the basic problem with rich white liberals. It's not that they don't want to do good. It's that they don't think to ask anybody what good means.
Like the hallmark is this sense, this completely out of touch approach to everything.
It's like they're saying, "Oh, we'll do a play about racism. I'll call my friend Corky St. Clair and see if he'll,
Yeah, absolutely. On to Best in Show. If you live in the town of Putnam, Connecticut, chances are you don't, since we've yet to receive a single download from that state. You have a chance to show off your best friend at the 3rd annual Funminster Dog Show. Categories include Wigglebutt, Shaggiest Coat, Dog and Owner Lookalike, Most Talented, Best Senior, Best Dressed, Best Tail, Best Ears, Largest Dog, and Smallest Dog. There are food trucks and vendors. It's an outdoor event, and social distancing will be observed. Tickets are priced affordably, and there's even a raffle. The event will be held May 15th, so there's no time to lose. Reserve those tickets now.
That sounds awesome. I would enter my dog into a contest, but only if one of the categories was biggest butthole, because he would definitely win right now.
Yeah, most podcast interruptions, he would sweep that category.
So, Best in Show, talking about the Kentucky Derby, Medina Spirit has won at 12-1 at post time. Very big win, surprised a lot of people. Surprised me because I, like most race fans, had discounted Medina Spirit, and I shouldn't have, because Medina Spirit was trained by Bob Baffert and ridden by John Velasquez, which is like saying that, I don't know, you were trained by God and ridden by Moses. I can't really even think of a metaphor, but those two guys could train a chipmunk to win the Kentucky Derby. And if I had seen that was the combo, I would have bet on Medina Spirit. I wasn't able to get a bet down at all because, of course, all the bars are closed. Any place that does OTB is closed right now. But I fully expect Medina Spirit to take the Triple Crown. I think it's a definite possibility.
So let me ask you a question about the Kentucky Derby. Is it a hat?
Yes, but it's not what you think. It is not a round-crowned hat with a small brim. It is a big, floppy ladies' hat that you wear while sipping a mint julep.
All right, well, that sounds delightful. On to a mighty wind. In June of 2020, an Austrian man was fined €500 for farting in proximity to police officers. This happened in Vienna, and the man was at a park visiting with some friends. Apparently, the fart was intentional and was rather massive. He argued before the court that farting is an innate human right, intentional or not, and the resulting fine is an infringement on his freedom of expression. His fine was reduced to €100, but the court argued that farts have no communicative content, and that even if they were an accepted form of communication, this particular transaction was well outside the bounds of decency. To which the guy replied, "Hold on a second. I need to get out my colostomy bag.
Oh shit. See, I've thought about, because I had read about this fart story and I thought about it, and I think on reflection that the court's contention that a fart has no communicative value is false, because if you fart at someone, you are definitely trying to convey something.
Yeah, in my household, when we fart at each other, we are telling each other that we love them. It's a rule.
It's a rule. You have to fart on each other?
No, you don't have to fart on each other. If you're falling out of love, you don't fart on each other. But we say I love you with our farts.
The pink eye family.
Like, if one of us farts, you don't even need to say excuse me. You just wait for the other person to say, I love you back.
With a fart.
Well, they can. I mean, if you have control over your guest to intentionally fart, you can do that. I don't have control over it.
So you're not at...
Gil will testify to that fact.
So you're not at lepetamine level. You're enthusiastic about farting, but not very skilled.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I get that. I feel the same way about pasta.
Sure.
Making pasta, I like it, but making it is tough.
Yeah.
So, a mighty wind as climate change promises more frequent and more powerful hurricanes. It's long past time to fund a coastal barrier system in Texas. It was first proposed over a decade ago to protect Houston and other cities on the coast. You'll enjoy this name. It's named after Hurricane Ike that came those years ago, and it's called the Ike Dike.
Of course.
It would cost $26 billion to build, but it would save over $2 billion a year in damages, as well as lives and environmental devastation. Because, as you probably know, Houston is also a big oil town, and if it gets washed out by a hurricane, it will be the biggest environmental disaster in history.
Sure.
But it would also take 15 years to build this dike, and nobody's even agreed to fund it. So, womp womp, I guess we're not going to do anything.
Sad trombone indeed. As you know, every week our investigative team uncovers a detailed and harrowing story on food crime. This week, Greg Person has the story.
I meant to address this one around Easter, folks, when it was seasonally appropriate, but that was the same time all this real water shit happened, and there were other things that were on my mind, so it slipped off the radar, but I'm back on it. I want to talk about Cadbury cream eggs. Listen, Cadbury chocolate in general is bad. And in general,
yeah, it's not good stuff.
Britain makes bad candy.
Mm-hmm.
Buying chocolate in Britain is like buying gefilte fish in North Korea. But even taking that into account, there is no excuse for the cream egg, which is a noxious mucosal concoction of enzymatically inverted sugar. It's food science stretched to the limits of decency to create something that doesn't really have a flavor. It's just toxically sweet, and it has the texture of a suppurating wound. It's basically an abscess that you buy and eat.
Yeah, I've never liked them just for textural reasons. That filler in there is it's awful.
Oh, it's disgusting. It's literally, it belongs in a medical textbook. It does not belong in a candy.
Right.
And yet, the weirdest part for me is that around the English-speaking world, not only in Britain, but in the United States and Canada as well, Cadbury cream eggs are the single best-selling candy between New Year's and Easter.
Wow.
I know, it's proof that this is either the Matrix, which some people believe, or as I believe, we are actually in hell, because no real human being would eat a Cadbury cream egg on purpose. So the people who are buying them and keeping them on the shelves are literal demons here to torment and revolt me.
Well, that is indeed the crimiest of food crimes.
It's the grimiest of food. It's the slimiest of food crimes.
Yeah, there you go.
Fucking
Perfect.
slime.
All right, it is time for the Podcast Shopping Network. Noble listener, I know you're busy. You have to be on the go. You have to go. You have to work, you have to drive, and unfortunately, you have to eat and drink. Those things simply don't mix, do they? You can't be in a car and eat or drink. At least not without spilling food and drink all over your good work clothes. The laws of physics just don't allow it. Rather than having to gasp, get out of your car and eat on a park bench or picnic table, today's product saves you that hassle. You can eat in your car and worry about nary a crumb with the Slobstopper. The barrier wraps around your neck and drapes all over the front side of your body, right over your lap. So if, like me, you have difficulty picking up that latte without dumping half of it down your pants, there's officially a better way. The product has taken some flack comparing it to baby bibs. I think that's totally off base. It's clearly different. Baby bibs are for babies. Slobstoppers are for grown-ups. And anyway, babies can't drive cars. That would be illegal and unethical. The Slobstopper retails for $14.95 plus shipping and handling.
So it's $14.95 for a bib so that you can eat while you're driving and not get food all over yourself.
And if you've seen this bib, it's basically like a plastic Snuggie.
Now, see, that I'd be into, but you'd have to sell it to me as something other than a bib. If you
Right.
said, hey, here's a personal portable sex tarp, I'd be like, fuck yeah. Because, I mean, that's the thing, right? You're thinking like, oh, this will stop fluids from getting on my clothes. Immediately, I'm starting to think of other non-burger-based applications for it.
Right.
I mean, this would be, to go in a slightly different direction, this would be a great thing to murder someone in.
Sure. Candidate number 1, Dexter Morgan, coming back.
Absolutely.
Apparently,
This is the Dexter. I was gonna try and think of an alliterative term. Yeah, but it's a murder poncho. It's not for stopping your slobs. By the way, that is my least favorite part of this product. Every time you said the word Slobstopper, I wanted to throw my headphones out a window.
he has the worst name.
The sound of it is horrible. If
Yeah.
you say the word Slobstopper 3 times in a row, I don't know what kind of gross flatulent monster you summon, but I'm not going to risk it. I'm done saying it.
I think if you say Slobstopper 3 times in a row, you summon Kid Rock's Honky Tonk Rock and Roll Steakhouse.
You just your closet door opens up and you hear "ba with the ba" and you're like, no!
And out, right? And out comes helicopter colostomy bag man.
Jeez, what a world!
All right, it's time for State Up. The next state in our alphabetical run of the states in the United States is Hawaii. This was a tough one, but we got some state facts for you, and we're gonna dive right in here. If you have an amphibious car and a way to refuel, you can theoretically drive there from the mainland. Alternatively, you can drive your car onto a boat.
Well, true fact, Hawaii is not actually a state. It's a colony annexed from the indigenous population by plantation owners. And the most useful thing about this fact is that it's true for all the other states, too.
Yeah, that's... Oof.
See, that's why we wanted to be careful, folks, not to, punch down at Hawaii to make fun of it or shit on it. Because Hawaii's been shit on enough.
Spam musubi is fucking
Oh,
delicious,
it is.
and I'm very sad that I can no longer have it.
See, but you forget about the global vegan spam that is available to us.
Oh, right.
From China.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, I've been looking for it, but so far no dice. But I'm gonna keep looking because I do love spam. Here's a fun fact. Mark Zuckerberg is buying up huge chunks of Hawaii because he thinks owning things will fill the emptiness at the core of his being. Not as snappy as some of our facts, but it's truer than most of them.
Right, it's pretty funny too. Hawaiian tourist season is apparently year-round, which makes it the best state in the union for hunting tourists.
Did you know Hawaiian punch is not actually Hawaiian, and in fact, punching people is illegal in Hawaii?
What?
Yeah. Yeah, like that commercial where the little guy with the moose antlers for some reason is like, hey, do you want a Hawaiian punch? And then he fucking socks the little kid in the mouth. You're
Right.
not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to sock little kids. You're not allowed to sock adults or clowns or anybody.
Well, good to know.
Yeah.
Should I ever visit Hawaii, don't punch people. Our final segment tonight, as every week, is Person to Person and Person, where we share your valuable feedback with our audience. We still haven't had any recent feedback, so I'm defaulting to writing a haiku about the subject of my choice. And I'm going to keep these going until we get another email, so I hope you like roller coaster haikus. The haiku. A long wooden roar breaks the afternoon silence here at Kings Island. That is in honor of the greatest wooden roller coaster in history, the Beast. Do you have any topics that you would like us to cover in main news? Send them our way. We'll write a haiku about the subject and feature it prominently in our main segment as we further degrade into media whores. Folks, that's all the show we have for you tonight. We love your feedback, and there are so many ways to give it to us. Send us an email, personandpersonshow@gmail.com. Drop us a voicemail. Still haven't had one of those. 541-249-5933. Find us on Twitter @AnchorPersons and check out our website, personandpersonshow.com. It hasn't been updated in ages, but really, who cares? The show's always posted there, and we will eventually get around to updating it. Until next time, this is Gene Person saying you should always end a comedy set with a callback.
And this is Greg Person saying, Kid Rock's Honky Tonk. You're going to be so dead broke that Kid Rock's Honky Tonk Rock and Roll Steakhouse. Never mind. I was going to make another joke, but I can't get through it. I can't.
This is the best.
Oh, fuck. I was going to do another joke, and I can't get through it without laughing. I'm dying.
Let's try it with you saying, Gene, when it's time to say that particular sequence of words, and then and not saying it yourself. Let's see if we can get through it that way.
All right. You're going to be so broke that no. Because even though I'm not going to say it with my mouth, it's in my brain.
Okay.
It's in my brain. I can't escape it. Oh,
no. Okay, take some deep breaths.
Shit. All right, I'm cool. I'm good. Right. I'm straight. Let's do it.
Kid Rock's Honky Tonk Rock and Roll Steakhouse.
Kid Rock's Honky Tonk. I can't. I'll never be able to say those words.
All right, let's move on. Until next time, this is Gene Person saying you should always end a comedy set with a callback.
You know what I'm going to do, don't you?
It occurred to me halfway through saying that what you're going to say. So I'm going to try it again. Okay. Until next time, this is Gene Person. Jesus Christ. Now it's happening to me.
You can do this. I believe in you.
Until...
Maybe we should just take it from another recording. And this is Greg Person saying, Kid Rock's Honky Tonk. I can't. I can't do it. I physically cannot. Okay, I'm gonna try one more time. Just one more time. I am a professional. I have done theater. I have done radio. I have done TV. I can do this. Okay. And this is shit. And this is Greg Person saying, "Kid rocks, honky tonk." Nope. Nope.
You know what? It's almost better.
That's the best you're gonna get, folks. I'm sorry, I can't.
I don't think we have ever laughed so hard during an episode. Thank you, Kid Rock. Who knew?
Kid Rock finally managed to make a crowd of people happy. It's a crowd of only, 30, 40, 50 people, but you're out there. Kid Rock's,
oh, man.
Kid Rock's honky. I can't.
Kid Rock's Honky Tonk Rock and Roll Steakhouse.
I can't. I can say Kid Rocks.
Right.
I can say Kid Rocks, but as soon as I try to say Honky Tonk, it's going to be a problem.
Right. Say Kid Rock.
Kid Rocks. Okay, I got this. I can do this.
Okay, just repeat after me. Kid Rock.
Kid Rock.
Honky Tonk.
Kid Rock's Honky Tonk Rock and Roll Steakhouse.
You did it!
I did it.
Congratulations.
Do you know what I had to do? I had to mentally disassociate so that I forgot what those words meant. That I was just saying sounds. I basically had to remove my soul from my body to do that.